seems to be
5,
working.
4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. I was wondering why it felt so cold this morning on the motorcycle. It was 13 degrees. My word, don't even want to think about the wind chill at 45 or 50 miles an hour. But here I am, bright and early. I know winter's here because I touched something on my desk and set off my sound effects machine. This is kind of old school. Executive sound effects machine. Stress terminator. So now you had your stress terminated. And I didn't even know where it was. It was under some papers way back in the corner there. But static electricity will sometimes set it off. And that reminds me that I have it. So let's dig into the crazy. And I like this commercial, but you probably, if you're not in England, can't buy from Waitrose. But that's the name of I think it's a grocery store chain.
Oh, it's lovely. But it's not the best part of Christmas. This is.
This is pure joy. But this is infused with truffle.
Christmas films are wonderful. Turkey. Everyone loves a Christmas party. But passing Heston's mince pies off as your own? Thrilling. Just whip these up. Myself. Candied figs in your Christmas pudding. Sprouts that are mostly pancetta. And stuffing. Yes, it was me. I ate the stuffing.
Or stuffing.
All of it.
I can skip that.
Because the best bit of Christmas is the food.
So I'm not sure what Waitrose Partnerships is, to be honest, and that didn't help me a bit. So one thing you might want to do is put your logo bigger at the end with what exactly that might be, but something to do with food, and I have to agree with the sentiment, even if I'm not quite so high on those particular dishes. So let's get over to the PDFs of the world, and first, oh yes, Facebook defeats investor lawsuit. Oops, what happened here? Boom, there we go. And this has been going on for years and years and years, and I've basically said it doesn't amount to a hill of beans because, first of all, if we zoom down, the judge said that the investor complaint, even if true, wouldn't support a finding that Facebook engaged in securities fraud. The investors were claiming that Facebook protected data, but Facebook didn't really protect data because look at some 80 million people's files got heisted. And they keep saying that this data was stolen or taken or uncovered or something. But, here's where it came from. Alexander Kogan, he had a personality quiz app called This Is Your Digital Life. Okay, I don't know if you remember, but, if I used to get these invitations. I have hundreds of friends on Facebook, of course, from Farmville and other things. Play Farmville with your friends. Okay, and so at first you say, okay, well, what is it? Let's see. So you say, okay, and up comes this huge warning across your screen. The whole screen is full of the warning. If you say okay to this next question, we will have access to all your friends, all their friends, the friends of friends, and everything we've ever known about them, including your whole entire family tree and DNA. Something like that. And, I kind of glanced at it and thought, I don't think I want to do that. So I never did. And I get these messages, why won't you play Farmville with me? And millions of people were playing these stupid Facebook apps and giving the app permission to take everything that the app wanted to take. You can say, well, that's Facebook's fault for letting the app do that. Well, yeah, but it was all consensual, let's say. Consensual is a great word for this. So get over it. Anyway, okay, so here, Rob Williams, I don't know if he's taken over for Joe Mandesi in the questionable graphs area, but I thought this was interesting that more consumers binge and bail on streaming apps. I'm not on a streaming app at all. I don't really want to be, and I don't want to binge old TV series. But the point of this is that more consumers are binging and bailing this year than last year. Of course, the first one says often cancel when the season ends and sign back up when the new season begins. It's actually gone down, no change. Why even put that on there? Get rid of that one. That is just distraction unless you want to prove that not much really has changed. This other one is curious because I read this about 6 times. Percent of U.S. adults, that's where I put it, who stream TV. Okay, so 9% of adults streamed TV back a year ago and now 11%. Oh no, of that, they often binge shows, cancel, and then sign up for another service. Okay, but I don't even know what this percent of U.S. adults who stream TV. So basically 9% versus now 11%. Okay, if you're going to do a graph like that, I mean, this is like peanuts, not much change. Go down here and do it like this. Take your y-axis and trim it. Don't go to 0. Now you've got beautiful change. Look at that. This is a crisis. Binging and bailing is up. At least you're showing something that looks right. If you're going to do graphs, let's do them with maximal propaganda effect. Okay, same numbers. I just plugged them in. I don't know if that's all percentage of all adults who stream, or percentage of households that have streaming TV, or percentage of streaming TV subscribers who binge and bail. But then they wouldn't be subscribers anymore. Anyway, not a good graph. Okay, Ritson, this isn't so much of a great article as it's the high points of a great webinar that Mark Ritson did. And I watched an hour and 15 minutes of it. He was taking the questions, and that kind of lost me. But let's go through it, and I'll give you an idea of what he thinks are the big events. Peloton. Basically, what he says about Peloton, this latest stuff with Sex in the City, is don't get so worked up about your own brand. Now, never mind, the stock did go down 11%, which is quite a bump down, but it went back again. Don't necessarily think that your brand is that important, and don't think that your brand is hurt just because somebody drops dead on your equipment and in fictional TV. Okay, so, and then he said, you know, it's your news is news, and that's great. Salience. And then Peloton did a funny ad. They did a serious ad about working out is a good thing no matter what Sex in the City says. Then they did a funny ad with Ryan Reynolds, who Mark really likes Ryan Reynolds. And then he said basically nothing much bad can happen, except that the stock market doesn't always go the direction you think it might. You know, on good news, sometimes it goes down because people were expecting the good news, and maybe it wasn't as good as expected. It's a really crazy rat race out there on the stock market. So anyway, Adidas sells Reebok. Good. In the graph, he shows somebody juggling, and he says, when you add another ball, you know, I can juggle 3 balls pretty well. I can juggle 2 balls forever. That's just up, move it over, up, move it over. That's really not one. Anybody can do 1. Well, not anybody, but most people should be able to do 1. So when you go to the 3rd ball, it gets hard because you got to keep 1 in the air all the time while you're moving the other 2 around. All kinds of things. Juggling is a whole topic from my head. But when you add that 4th ball, if you can't handle 4 balls, you don't just drop 1 ball, you drop them all, pretty much. You might keep 2 in your hand, but you'll pretty much drop most everything. And that's his argument for it was really interesting, too. He pronounces it Adidas, which I've never heard before, Adidas. You know, but it's entirely likely the rest of the world pronounces it Adidas, and I've always said it Adidas. I don't know what's right, but it sounds cool, Adidas, like Abu Dhabi. Anyway, so he says it was smart of Adidas to sell Reebok because, you know, they just didn't do that great a job with it, and they'll be more profitable if they quit worrying about it. And there's probably a lesson for life there. That's kind of what I was thinking when I was reading it, that maybe instead of trying to launch 3 businesses at a time, all my life, maybe I would have been better off sticking with one, but what fun is that? And maybe that's what Adidas thought when they bought Reebok. Tiffany, he had pictures of the campaign where they put up these raunchy ads in raunchy neighborhoods in LA, and it made world news, of course, on Twitter or on Instagram. Then they changed their teal color to this kind of like highlighter yellow. And he said, they got to have a little fun with it, and he thinks long term it's going to be a great move. Jeff Bezos said a lot of great things about Jeff Bezos on his video. He said that famously one time they were all speculating about what they should do next on some project, and Jeff walks out of the room and comes back with an empty chair and says, "There's somebody missing in the room, and that's the customer. What's the voice of the customer?" And Mark rightly pointed out that once you sign up with a company, once you take a paycheck, you're no longer objectively looking at the company from the perspective of the customer. And that's just sort of epistemologically, that's just the way it is. You can't have both views in your head at once. You can, to some extent, maybe if you have philosophical training, think in the mind of the opponent. But basically, as long as you recognize that, as long as you're always keenly aware that you don't really know what people think of what you're doing, that's just not a thing. And they're not going to tell you either. That's another thing. And if you ask them, they'll say nice things mostly to your face. But, you just don't know. And Jeff Bezos was always good about that. And Mark specifically went back to a 1999 video where the reporter was asking, well, isn't it great that you're an e-commerce company? And isn't it great that you're digital? And isn't it great that you're on the internet and the internet and the internet? And Jeff finally got mad and said, basically, if we could use choo-choo trains to make the customer happy, we would. It has nothing to do with the internet. And Mark said it revealed the steel underneath the velvet glove, which I think is great. Okay. Brand marketers are terrible at briefs. He encouraged you to sign up for a brief writing school that's coming to New York City in the spring, I think in March. I've never, as far as I know, I've never written a brief. I did work at an ad agency, but I know that what the president of the company, of the client company said, and what the ad manager said were two worlds apart. And, I'm not sure, deep down, I'm not sure ad agencies want good briefs. That would be my suspicion, Mark. Because in a sense, it gives them more creative freedom. They can come up with something, and if the client doesn't like it, they can say, well, look at that crappy brief you wrote. Sometimes that's the way it seemed at the ad agency. And this was a 4A's ad agency, so it was not just nothing. Not just a couple of guys in a garage. Okay, Pfizer. Oh, this was a really interesting take. Pfizer, of course, if you compare Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer in the last 2 years, Pfizer, of course, is the home run. He says, so what's the name of the new vaccine that Pfizer's developed, or the latest booster? It's called Comirnaty. And this is really a funny take. Mark has always got funny takes. You can't even say it. You can't even read it out loud looking at it. Comirnaty. It sounds so stupid. Anyway, whatever. One of the other ones called it, Zapvax or something like that. It was a really nice, punchy name. And what Mark thinks is that when Pfizer came up with Viagra, Viagra has this idea of vitality and vigor and all that sort of thing. And when they came up with that, it displaced the Pfizer name. That people remember Viagra and they don't remember Pfizer, right? So they came up with the dumbest name they could come up with, and now nobody will remember which is kind of funny because Pfizer was the company that took penicillin and made it marketable. At the beginning of World War II, there were only about 30 doses in the entire United States of penicillin. And, it'd been around for 10 or 15 years. People knew it was effective. They just couldn't get it because nobody could figure out how to multiply it. There's only so many slices of moldy bread laying around that are forming penicillin. And Pfizer multiplied it. And by the end of World War II, Pfizer probably saved more people than all the fighting combined. Anyway, but people don't know that. People don't know what, and Pfizer started with deworming, making a German drug in the United States for parasite worms. Who knew? Anyway, Procter & Gamble doubles down on the marketing, and Mark compared that to Coca-Cola, where Coca-Cola cut back. They said, well, the stores aren't open anyway. Why advertise? I think Coke's done some really, really, really dumb things in the past few years. And as I told my son, Coca-Cola is not welcome in this house. You can buy it if you want. Just don't bring it over. So anyway, Procter & Gamble, on the other hand, said, we're not pulling back. We're pushing forward. And they recorded revenue growth of 4% in 2020. So way to go. Burger King. This is interesting because Burger King, according to the Drum, was the #1 award-winning food advertiser in 2020 or 2021. Was the most awarded client globally in 2021. Because they come up with a lot of quirky stuff. But if you study the history of advertising, like I'll never remember Plop Plop Fizz Fizz, oh what a relief it is for Alka-Seltzer. Or Where's the Beef, which I think was Wendy's. This little old lady said, where's the beef? And, she was complaining that there wasn't any meat in the hamburger bun. And in both cases, sales went down for those products. So just having a memorable ad does not necessarily mean they remember your name. Like, for example, what was the name of the store up on the ad I just showed you? I don't even know. I'd have to look it up, but I don't care to because they didn't mention the name. So Burger King has, what sticks in my mind about Burger King is that video of the burger getting moldier and moldier and moldier. It makes me sick every time I think about it. Every time I think about going to Burger King, I think about, they have moldy burgers. That's exactly what I think. And I wish I didn't, because I kind of like Burger King. They were the first to have the Impossible Burger, which they didn't cook well. But you could say at least I'm not having meat. If you're vegan or something, you can go get a burger. But really uncoordinated. This was an interesting one. He cited Peter Field's work, which compared purpose campaigns and non-purpose campaigns. And I promised that I would talk about this today. And what Peter Field basically said was that non-purpose campaigns on average outperform purpose, being like we saved the whales or we banned plastic straws in our car dealership or something, whatever it is. Trying to make up something preposterous, and that was pretty good. But generally, you're wasting time talking about your purpose. People aren't going to believe it for the most part anyway. And what have you done for me lately? Okay, WWIFM. What's in it for me? Is a pretty solid formula as a starting point for advertising, as opposed to, the forests of Iceland or somewhere. So in general, and then he was criticized because they said, well, what about good purpose campaigns? Well, good purpose campaigns outperform average non-purpose campaigns. But then he said, but if you look at the best purpose campaigns and the best non-purpose campaigns, the non-purpose wins again. So in general, tell me about your product. Tell me what's in it for me. That does the best. It's a rule. Okay, Facebook rebrands Meta, and he said that, while that is something Facebook should do because Facebook is kind of maligned, and in my world, it's deteriorating into little groups and little clubs that are very informative and good. But they're not, it's just not what it was, where everybody puts up their vacation pictures. So he said they should ditch. They should ditch. It's already ditched in my mind. They should ditch whoever's the spokesperson and runs Facebook. Get somebody vital and vibrant out there. And he told a story about let's see, Sony Ericsson. Is that what it was? Ericsson was part of it. Anyway, I think it was Sony, and they did a forward-looking video about a lady on a yacht, doing a business meeting on a phone with pictures, and then talking to her kids with them on the pictures, and then telling her husband what time she'd be home, and like running the world from her phone. And he said they got it 100% right, but it wasn't their phone that did it, right? And that's the tricky part, because he said there will be a metaverse of some sort, but there probably won't be Facebook doing it. Anyway, very, very interesting. I'll put the link to the show, to his actual show, in the show notes over on WDMA.org. If you're a subscriber, which is free, you can get all the show notes and the articles. But if you go over there, you'll get it. And it's definitely worth an hour, because it's Mark Ritson on distilled on all these different case studies. It's really, really worthwhile. Worth an hour as you're doing nothing else, waiting for the dinner to be put on the table. Have a great day. Merry Christmas. Like and share. Your friends will know you're smart. Bye-bye.